Saturday of the second week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the second book of Samuel. David returned from his defeat of the Amalekites and spent 2 days in Ziklag. On the third day, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. Going to David, he fell to the ground in homage. David asked him, "Where do you come from?" He replied, "I have escaped from the camp of the children of Israel." "Tell me what happened," David bade him. He answered that many of the soldiers had fled the battle, and that many of them had fallen and were dead, among them Saul and his son Jonathan. David seized his garments and rent them, and all the men who were with him did likewise. They mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and his son Jonathan, and for the soldiers of the Lord of the clans of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. Alas, the glory of Israel, Saul, slain upon your heights! How can the warriors have fallen? Saul and Jonathan, beloved and cherished, separated neither in life nor in death, swifter than eagles, stronger than lions. Women of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and in finery, who decked your attire with ornaments of gold. How can the warriors have fallen, in the thick of the battle, slain upon your heights? I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. Most dear have you been to me. More precious have I held love for you than love for women. How can the warriors have fallen? The weapons of war have perished. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, "Let us see your face, Lord, and we shall be saved." O shepherd of Israel, hearken. O guide of the flock of Joseph, from your throne upon the cherubim shine forth before Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh. Rouse your power and come to save us. Let us see your face, O Lord, and we shall be saved. O Lord of hosts, how long will you burn with anger while your people pray? You have fed them with the bread of tears and given them tears to drink in ample measure. You have left us to be fought over by our neighbors, and our enemies mock us. Let us see your face, Lord, and we shall be saved.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus came with his disciples into the house. Again the crowd gathered, making it impossible for them even to eat. When his relatives heard of this, they set out to seize him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." The Gospel of the Lord.
January 20th, Saturday of the second week in Ordinary Time. In the first reading, we hear about the death of Saul and Jonathan. They went into a battle against the Philistines. And at this point, David was a mercenary who was working for the Philistines. But the Philistines didn't totally trust him because they were afraid that if they went into battle against the Israelites, David would switch sides. And so they sent David to attack the Amalekites while they were attacking the Israelites. Saul and Jonathan are killed, and David mourns for the two of them. There's good reason why he would mourn for Jonathan, because they had made a covenant of friendship. But why would he mourn for Saul? Because God had chosen Saul as the anointed one of Israel. And even if Saul had tried to kill David, David shows himself as superior in spirit to Saul. He, in fact, will reward the people who bury Jonathan and Saul because they recognize that God had chosen these men. The Gospel is a very strange short passage, Mark 3:20-21. We hear that the family of Jesus comes to take him home because they say that he's out of his mind. Now, it's not clear exactly who the family of Jesus is. Is Mary included in this, or is it just the brothers and sisters of Jesus, his cousins? Furthermore, it's not clear who's saying that Jesus is out of his mind, the people among whom Jesus is preaching or the family themselves. Now, how could the family wonder who Jesus is? Didn't Mary receive the message that Jesus was going to be the anointed one? And that's the very problem. The Anointed One doesn't go around proclaiming that he's going to suffer and die. That doesn't make any sense. Jesus is proclaiming himself as the Son of Man. That's the title he would use for his ministry. Not as the Son of God, not as the Messiah, but as Son of Man, which comes from Daniel 7, where the Son of Man receives power and authority over the nations, but it also comes from the vocabulary used describing the suffering servant in Deutero-Isaiah, where the suffering servant would take the sins of the people upon himself, suffer, die, be buried among thieves, and then be raised from the dead. That is Jesus' ministry. The family of Jesus has a very difficult time understanding that. In fact, later in this chapter, the family of Jesus will be outside and Jesus is informed. He says, "Who are my family? Those of you here who listen to the word of God are my family." Almost implying that those outside are not quite as good. In the Gospel of Mark, the apostles have a difficult time figuring out who Jesus is, and the family of Jesus has a difficult time figuring out who Jesus is. It's a reminder that it is not easy to understand Jesus and his message. It's only at the cross that they fully understand what the call is all about. And may God bless us.